Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about car dealership layoffs because this is a huge topic that nobody's really talking about. Before we get into this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money, the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And then if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. Let's get into it. Now, first off, when I say car dealership layoffs, that's not exactly the best way to define what's happening right now because it's more like car dealerships pushing people to quit / firing people, because laying off implies that an employer is basically saying that a job is no longer needed and that they're going to give a severance package to their employee so that their employee can, get by for the next 3 to 6 months until they can find another job. And that's definitely not what car dealers do. That's just not how the car industry works. Like, if you basically get kicked out of a dealership, you're typically not going to get any type of severance package. It's like, see you later, good luck to you. So when I'm saying car dealership layoffs, what I really mean, again, is that people are kind of getting pushed out of dealers or they are getting fired. And the reason why dealers are able to push people out and fire them so easily is because most states here in the US are at-will employment states, which basically means that an employer can fire an employee at any time and they can give a reason or they don't have to actually give a reason. And something I do need to mention is each individual state has their own laws with at-will employment. And so there is some protection for employees, but the US as a whole is a country that kind of leans more towards the employer side rather than the employee side when it comes to basically firing. And so that is a big part of why dealers are able to just push people out so easily, is because, well, at-will employment happens to be a thing here in the US. Now, when it comes to the reasons as to why dealers are starting to get rid of so much of their staff, well, all you have to do is just take a look at the car market and everything will make sense. Over the course of the last year, we have been in a car market where just everything has been in decline. New vehicle sales have been declining. Used car prices have been declining. Interest rates have been increasing. Like, this is a car market that is not great for car dealership profits. Now, I tried to find some sort of national statistic in terms of what car dealers are making currently, and I couldn't really find anything. The best, like, quote unquote, national numbers I can give you is stuff from like Carvana and CarMax, and right now they're getting down to the point where they're making about $2,000 per car deal, which I know that sounds like a lot of money, but in the car dealership world, that's not a whole lot of money on each individual car deal, especially compared to what dealers are making over the course of the pandemic. On a more anecdotal side of things, I had several dealers over the course of the pandemic tell me that they were making, $5, $6, $7, sometimes even, $10,000+ on average per car deal between front-end gross profit. Front-end gross profit is the profit a car dealership makes on the car itself, and between the back-end gross profit, that is the profit a car dealership makes by selling warranties and other sorts of financing products. And so, let's just say hypothetically, these dealers are going from making, $5,000 to $10,000 on average per car deal down to making, something like $2,000 per car deal, or potentially even less. I've had some dealers tell me that their per car is getting pretty ugly at this point with how much they're having to discount inventory and just how much money they're losing on inventory, especially if it's pre-owned. And so you can see that this is a recipe for dealers needing to get rid of staff because they're just simply making a lot less money than what they were making over the course of the pandemic. Now, the first set of roles at the car dealership that were cut, and most of these cuts happened actually a few months ago, were salary positions that aren't really necessary for a dealership, where they can kind of offload those basically work items to other people in the dealership. So like receptionists, that was a really common one where dealers just got rid of all their receptionists. And then lot techs, what has basically happened is car dealers are now having their salespeople do both of those jobs. So their salespeople are now parking the cars for the dealership, and then they are also, answering the phone calls, doing all the stuff that the receptionist would normally do. And then when it comes to washing the cars, most car dealers have actually 2 different sets of staff to wash cars. They'll have detailers that'll basically wash like the used inventory, and then they usually have lot techs that'll wash the inventory that has just been sold. well, since car dealers got rid of the lot techs, they're now having the salespeople / the detailers wash the cars that just got sold, depending on who is available. And something else to note is a lot of car dealerships have some sort of like automated car wash. And so what I've been seeing happen a lot lately is that dealers have just been having the cars go through the automated car wash, and then that's it. That's all. It doesn't get the same level of detail that the cars got before. But regardless, those were the first set of layoffs that happened. Now, the next set of jobs that has pretty much been cut at dealerships over the course of December and January was a lot of management positions. So like sales managers, general sales managers, some general managers even, and then used car managers as well. And the thing that I've noticed is that dealers have basically just been combining roles. So like, for example, some dealers will have it where a sales manager will also be the used car manager, or maybe a general sales manager will also be the used car manager. And so like, they're just having people at the management level perform multiple roles. Now, the thing that they're doing is they're obviously compensating these people more for doing multiple roles, but they're not paying them as much as if they're paying two individual people. So what this might look like is, let's say that as a sales manager, you're getting paid 100%. And then let's say as a used car manager, you're getting paid 100%. Well, if they get rid of the used car manager, they make the sales manager do the used car manager job, they might pay the sales manager 150%. They won't necessarily pay them 200%, because again, they're trying to save themselves on some, costs. And this, a lot of times makes sense for these people to do multiple jobs, because even though they're not getting paid, to do both jobs in full, when a person approaches you at your job and says, hey, do you want to make an extra whatever amount of money? Chances are you're going to be like, yeah, sure, why not? And so that's the next, line of cuts that has been happening. And this finally now leads us to today, where dealerships are now starting to push out their sales staff. Now, historically, dealers try to typically keep as much sales staff as they can manage, because if you have more senior salespeople, then you're going to be able to basically make more profit, because the senior salespeople will be able to impart more value into the car deals, basically convincing the customers to pay more money for cars, which makes the dealership more profit overall. And so usually they want to keep people around. And the mentality of most dealers is that if they have more salespeople, they're going to sell more cars because they have more people to help more people. But the pandemic definitely eroded a lot of that, because what car dealers realized is that if they just have a smaller group of really good sales staff, then not only will they make more profit, but they'll be able to just help out all of the customers that they need to help out. Because if you've got, some strong go-getters, they're going to want to they're going to want to go through as many customers as they can so they can make as much money as they can manage. And so now with today's market, where dealers are realizing that that's what they need to focus on with these dwindling profits, that means that they want to get rid of all of their quote unquote crappy sales staff. So what they're doing is they're giving what are called spoon deals to their good sales staff. And this is something that always happens in the dealership world, no matter what's happening in the market, but it's kind of escalated to a point where the dealers make sure that all of the set deals that the dealership is always going to get, like customers that, repeatedly come in and buy cars every single year, are only going to go to a certain group of sales staff, just to make sure that those sales staff are consistently making money. And they'll make sure that the group that they want to get rid of is not getting any of those deals. And then on top of that, the biggest source of leads for dealerships in today's world is internet leads, right? That's where everyone shops for a car. And so what dealers are also doing at this point is they're basically making it so that all of the really good internet leads, and this is something that I know because I was in internet sales, are going towards the group of salespeople that they want to keep, and all the crappy junk leads are going to the salespeople they don't want to keep, because ultimately the dealers don't want to lay off the salespeople because they don't want to have to give them some sort of severance package if their state requires that. And, if the salespeople are technically doing their jobs, they can't fire them, right? They've got to have at least a good enough reason so the salesperson doesn't come and sue the dealership. And so the best thing for them to do in their minds is just to starve them out, to make it so that that salesperson doesn't sell any cars, so that they're making no money. So then they either have to just deal with that or, leave and go get a job somewhere else. And I can tell you, as someone who worked in the car business, it is extremely effective So pulling everything together, car dealers are going to continue to basically cut down on staff, because if they're not making as much profit on each car deal, then they can't afford to have as many employees. And something that I probably should have mentioned earlier in the video is the biggest expense for car dealers is payroll. That is bigger than any other expense. It's more expensive than the interest they pay on cars. It's more expensive than the rent that they pay if they happen to be renting their building. It's more expensive than anything. And so if they can cut down on that expense, that is where they will be able to save the most amount of money. And so I'm sure that this is going to continue to progress as the year goes by. And the thing that I'm really noticing about the car business is it's becoming more and more of what I would consider like a quote unquote professional business, because I see a huge difference in the salespeople that like I interacted with when I was selling cars. I'm not talking about just at my dealership, I'm talking about at other dealerships as well, compared to today. Like, yes, you can still find some quote unquote green peas, but the chances of you running into a salesperson that doesn't know what they're doing is dwindling, because dealers are realizing that they need to just have a small core group of salespeople that's really good, because that will make them the most amount of money. And frankly, it'll lead to them having the happiest customers, which will ultimately lead to more car deals and even more money. And I guess that I should mention, why should you even care about this as a consumer? Well, first off, I think stuff like this is interesting because nobody's talking about it. Again, like all that we hear about is that the car market is declining and values are declining and this is declining, but nobody's actually talking about like how this is actually affecting, dealerships on a practical level. And this is what it's doing, is it's leading to a lot of people that are normally employed by dealers that are now going to be no longer employed by dealers. And another thing I didn't even mention is vendors. Dealers have a lot of different vendors that'll come in and do things for them, and dealers are starting to cut down on that as well, because again, they're trying to cut costs everywhere. And something that I actually had a pretty long conversation with one dealer about was vendors. And what the dealer told me is that is where they will cut costs first. If someone is not on their payroll, they'll get rid of that first, and then they'll start cutting people on their payroll from that point on. And so, yeah, I'll give you guys updates as this situation progresses if there's anything that's more interesting to hear. But at this point, see ya.